Hello everyone, this is video 2 for shortcuts. Price list will go out Wednesday, October 18th at 9 p.m. as usual. If you're not on the mailing list and you would like the chance to buy some of these records, my email address is in the notes for this channel. So hit me up. All right, so I've got a pretty special list here. It's a mix of Aussie, New Zealand, and Japanese. Now, this t-shirt will give you a clue. I was invited on the radio on Saturday to speak on an ABC show in South Australia. And we're talking about records that have their 50th anniversary this year, of which this record is probably the most famous. So yeah, I've got two really nice quadraphonic Aussie first presses. One has one of the posters, the other has both posters. Both vinyl are superb. For those of you who aren't aware, the Aussie quadraphonic mix is quite interesting. It's quite different to the Japanese mix, quite different to the UK mix. Now, not many of us have or ever had a quadraphonic setup, but it plays remarkably well on as a stereo mix. I'm doing a video in about 2 weeks' time where I'm going to stack rank my personal favorite Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon mix presses, and I'll give a little bit more information about the quadraphonic at that time. But those are two high-class copies. Now, a lot of Aussie copies have pretty poor sleeves, and often the vinyl is pretty mangled, but that's not the case with those. You will be very happy. Now, the next record, though, of all the Pink Floyd records that I'm going to show you, this one is by far the rarest and the most interesting. This is the New Zealand first press of Metal. Now, why would this be the most interesting? Well, the first thing that you probably noticed was the shine. Can you see that? So it has this beautiful laminate cover. It actually says Metal Pink Floyd on the spine. It's really, really beautiful. It feels really silky to the touch, quite different. There's a lot of other metal presses are almost matte finishes. To have this so glossy is good. You can see the inside sleeve. You can also see up here the stamp of the record shop that it was bought in Takapuna. Rendezvous Records. So this is a really rare and very beautiful thing. There's the sleeve, the Harvest sleeve. Has a few marks, plays really well. An unusual and rare piece, my friends. Now we come to a Pink Floyd record which has grown in my estimation mightily over the years. And that was because I went to see the Roger Waters stereophonic, surround sound, ultra amazing tour that he did just before the lockdown. One of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life, and somewhat because I was not expecting it. And he played this album from start to finish. This is the Aussie first press of Animals. Really nice condition, as you can see. These are all off my own shelf, by the way. There's the insert and the record. Strong VG++, fabulous condition, plays really, really well. So that's Animals, Metal, and Dark Side. I also have another rarity. This is the Aussie first press of Atom Heart Mother. Now you can see the gloss again. It's a little bit different to the New Zealand from before because it's not a gatefold. It's got the original insert record holder. But again, this is the Harvest label. This is the best Aussie copy of Atom Heart Mother I've ever seen. Because that sleeve typically disintegrates, and that's in fabulous condition. And then finally, we have the Aussie first press of the Final Cut. Again, in lovely condition. This record is on what is the name of this label? I can't remember, but you can see it. So, a little smatter of New Zealand and Aussie Floyd for you all to ruminate on. Now, last week, I spoke about Yazoo. An absolute find for me this year. I love it. And that got me deep diving into my collection and thinking about synth pop and how it translates to vinyl and why does it work? And I listened to Einsteinste, Nurzinda, lots of whatever they're called. I can never pronounce it. I listened to some German industrial and some early synth. And that led me to this band. And somewhat to be expected, to be honest, because Vince Clarke, who founded Yazoo, left this band just before these two records and formed Yazoo and then went on to Erasure, etc. But this is Depeche Mode, Broken Frame, and Depeche Mode, Construction Time Again. Their second album and their third album. This is the Aussie first press, and this is a US repress from, I think, the late 90s. So why did I select those two records? Well, they're kind of duplicates of music I have. And I love both these records. Martin Gore, kind of the key songwriter once Vince Clarke left, describes A Broken Frame as I don't think he was kind of tongue in cheek as a boy band trying to break out of a serious political band trying to break out of a boy band. It kind of doesn't quite sound like that. It has its moments. I mean, Monument, Meaning of Love, and probably my favorite, the last track, The Sun and the Rainfall. But I love this record, and again, like Yazoo, Depeche Mode and vinyl just works. How does synth pop from the early 80s sound so amazing? It genuinely really does. This pressing is amazing. So this is a kind of a glossy hard cardboard, I guess the early version of the 180 vinyl, kind of solid chunk. Sounds incredible. I have the Japanese first press of this, and I played this against the Japanese first press, and to be honest, I would not have been able to tell the difference. And the only reason I just decided to put this one on this is just because it'll be cheaper. But they're both wonderful records. And then one more synth pop before we move into something completely different. So I listened to Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret by Soft Cell, and I liked it. Thought it was good. Didn't think it was as good as the Depeche Mode records and the German records that I've been listening to. One that I'm going to talk about another time called Propaganda, which absolutely, honestly, was astonishingly good. And that led me to this second record that I liked very, very much indeed. It's called The Art of Falling Apart, the sophomore record by Soft Cell. So after they released Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret, which was a deeply sleazy and sexually provocative and interesting record, The Art of Falling Apart is a little bit different. It isn't as political as Construction Time Again. Now, Construction Time Again features my favorite, up until maybe the Violator era, but my favorite Depeche Mode single, which is Everything Counts, which is an amazing song. So Soft Cell doesn't quite have anything as good as that, but it has this fascination with covers. Obviously, they were incredibly famous for Tainted Love, but the cover that they do on here is, which one is it? I think it's Sly. Oh, they covered in the B-sides of this record some Jimi Hendrix, which is kind of weird. But it's just a really warm and inviting record. Mark Almond's voice is really lovely. Man, again, really delightful and just lovely records to play. I can't recommend them highly enough. Anyway, I'll get off my synth pop soapbox and we'll go in a completely different direction. What a sleeve this is. This has to be one of the greatest sleeves ever. Look at that. That is Joan Jett and the Black Hearts, the album, 1983. This is, setting aside the compilations, because Joan Jett had many hits and some of the compilation albums are wonderful. But there is, and beyond the Runaways as well, which was, an amazing record. This is the best Joan Jett album. And why is that? Well, firstly, a lot of the songs sound like they're outtakes from the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street. Really groovy guitars, dirty, sleazy guitars. If anything, I'd want the drums. You definitely miss the Charlie Watts drum beat. But also it features easily my favorite Joan Jett song, which is it's called, I want to get the exact title because I hate getting them wrong. The French Song, which is one of the great songs describing ménage à trois. But yeah, this record rocks. The sleeve's incredible. It's dirty, sleazy, kind of early 80s punk. Quite different to synth pop, but rather wonderful in its own way. Well, you know what? I'm going to talk about this one next, because those of you who know me know that this is one of my all-time favorite records, and I'm not going to bang on about it. This record is bloody amazing, and if you don't own it, get yourself a Japanese copy of Electric Warrior by T-Rex. One of the greatest records of the 70s. I love this record. I remember hearing some of it on John Peel, Lying in the Dark, when I was in my teens, recording it, playing it over and over. Girl, some of the blues on that record. I think that record is genius. This is a Japanese first press of one of the greatest Aussie pop records of the 80s. I don't need to talk about this record. You know how good this is. The swing in excess. Japanese hard card. Actually, I'll show you the gatefold, because the gatefold is special. Proper hard cardboard gatefold. In fabulous condition. Look at that. Yeah, big fan of this record. It's got the Japanese inserts, et al. Brilliant stuff. Now, I've got two blues records to show you. Right, both Obi Heaven here. We've got King Albert by Albert King, and we've got Lucille Talks Back by B.B. King. Both of these are underappreciated records by masters. Albert King had left the Stax label when he made this record, and it's a return to the sound of Stax on this Blue Victor label, the dirty, stomping rhythms and just brilliant guitar licks. Really, really like it very much. But I think I like this one even more. Lucille Talks Back is recorded 1975, and BB went into the studio with his orchestra and effectively self-recorded, self-produced. It's super mellow, really, really melodic, playful. He is in his element. And whilst he looks a little bit morose on the cover, the record is anything but. Yeah, it's a delight. Can't recommend those two blues records highly enough. And it's hard to find really good presses of those with the Obi. They don't cost an absolute arm and a leg, so I was quite pleased to find those. Now, I'm going to talk about two records that are linked in ways that are rather unusual. And then I'm going to show you 4 or 5 kind of shortcuts royalty that I've got new copies of that you may fill gaps in your collection. But I'm going to talk about Steely Dan, Katie lied. And then I'm going to talk about a band that I listened to for the first time 2 weeks ago, and I could not believe how much they reminded me of Steely Dan, and it's illogical and doesn't make sense. But Steely Dan, Walter Becker, and Donald Fagen had this run of records in the 70s where they honed this sophisticated rock and almost kind of country soul into that morphed kind of over time into, I guess you'd have to call it jazz rock and the beginning of math rock. I mean, they're pretty legendary stuff. But this run, this in between, Can't Buy the Feeling, their debut, and probably Asia, you get this run with the Royal Scam and Pretzel Logic, and this record, Katie Lied. I'd always been a Steely Dan fan, and I had a huge range of their UK and Aussie presses. That was until I heard the Japanese presses. I don't know exactly what alchemy was at play when the Japanese were pressing Steely Dan records in the 70s on ABC Records. But they sound really wonderful, and this one's no exception. Steely Dan are a deeply weird band. Look at this sleeve. What is that? It's like a weird fly thing. Everything about them is just askew. Nothing. I find that they're just like the Earth is slightly off its axis. So is Steely Dan, and I think that's why they resonate. This is a high fidelity recording. Steely Dan uses a specially constructed 24-channel tape recorder, a state-of-the-art 36-input computerized mixdown console, and some very expensive German microphones. Individual microphone equalization is frowned upon. They were anal, doesn't describe it. The computer logic circuits of the VMS-70 widen and narrow the grooves on the disc in accordance with its own bizarre electronic mentation for reasons known only to its designers. As I said, deeply odd, but maybe that's the source of their genius. And then there's this. I bought this record purely because of the sleeve. Look at that. 1978. The Band of Joy. I thought this was going to be a hard rock record. And there are parts where that is the case. But 3 a.m. in the City is the opening track, and I promise you, it could be a song on Katie Lied. It's sophisticated, melodic, kind of jazz rock in a wholly surprising way. I do love the little drop of blood just there. Whatever has happened to this poor monster. But the Band of Joy were somewhat ill-founded. They didn't last very long. And this record has a cult following, and I can understand why. Very, very interesting and unusual. And very Steely Dan. Now, I promised you I'm not going to spend a lot of time, because you all know these records inside out and upside down and a squillion ways, forward and backward. But I'm going to quickly show you. These are wonderful copies of these records that I picked up. We have Michael Jackson's Thriller, hard cardboard gatefold. And for those of you who have not added the Japanese pressing to your collection, just a couple of things. Look at those beautiful sleeves and multiple posters. This one, why is there a tiger on his leg? I've never been able to figure it out. Look at that. It's wonderful. It sounds great. I've heard the recent Mo-Fi one step for, I don't know, $200 or $300. One of my good friends brought it round and we played it. And you know what? I wouldn't swap it for my Japanese first press. I think my Japanese first press sounds better. It's so good. All right. We also have a rather wonderful Night at the Opera, Queen, another hard cardboard delight. This record, one of the club members, Darren, has bought a number of really high. He's got an amazing sound system. I go around and listen to it. It's like a reference sound system. It's truly incredible. And something stuck in my mind. I don't know, 6-8 months ago we were around and we brought some records to listen. And he said, "Do you remember you sold me Van Halen, 1984? And he went, "It is one of the best sounding records in my collection." I'll trust him on it, because I must admit I've not listened to it. We also have the Japanese first press of Rumours and the second press of Led Zeppelin 4. So 5 classics to round things out. Led Zeppelin 4, Rumours, Van Halen 1984, Queen and Night at the Opera, and the incredible Thriller by Michael Jackson. So there we have it. What a wide and varied list. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Please leave me a comment if you did or didn't. If you're interested in receiving the price list, please hit me up. And I'll see you all on Wednesday.